Welcome to another episode of the Programmatic Digest podcast. I am your host, Ellen Parker, and today I have female pioneers of one of our favorite DSPs, StackAdapt, on the call. We have Anna, Lydia, and Zeynep, which I will let you introduce yourself in a hot second. But it's Women's Month, so I figured we would start strong on the podcast and have some really badass female leadership join us to talk about their professional growth, but also their personal growth and plus some. So before we get into today's conversation, let's have Anna introduce herself. So let us know who you are, what you do at StackAdapt, and maybe let's keep it fun today. Maybe like a superpower you want to share with us. How about that?
Well, thank you, Alan. Super excited to be here. I'm Anna, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Global Client Services here at StackAdapt. I've been here for just over a year. Previously worked at Google, Amazon, and MediaMath, the OG of the DSPs.
Sure
And so
is.
super excited to be back in the DSP
Uh-huh.
space. But from education, I'm actually a theoretical quantum physicist and made that leap to AdTech years ago and happy since. In terms of my superpower, I'd say it's a combination of being technical, focus on data science,
Mhm.
and the technology that we offer in ad tech, but at the same time, understanding business and marketing needs of our clients and being that
Nice.
connector
Mhm.
across the needs technology, but also the people that can help.
Nice. Well, thank you. I don't know if any of you thought about this, but when she said something quantum, I automatically thought about Ant-Man and the Wasp. Am I the only one who's a Marvel fan? If you're listening or watching this on YouTube and you can relate, shout out to you. But with no further ado, let me please introduce Lydia. Lydia, tell us a little bit about what you do at StackAdapt. Obviously, your superpower, and then yeah, that's it. That's it. Let's go. Let's start there.
Awesome. So thanks, Ellen. Thanks so much for having me. My name is Lydia Berlacher, and I'm the Vice President of Commercial Strategy and Operations at StackAdapt.
Mhm.
I also joined just over a year ago, and I would say my superpower is discerning, signal from noise and really being able to cut through the chaos. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Thank you, Lydia. And last but not least, Zainab, please tell us about yourself, what you do at StackAdapt, and your superpower.
Sure. Thank you so much for having us, first of all. So I'm a lead data scientist at StackAdapt. I've been here for a little over 5 years.
Yeah.
So I manage a group of data scientists and engineers in the data science team. We build machine learning algorithms and AI tools that basically power StackAdapt. So we're involved in all three stages of campaign execution, from planning to execution to post-campaign analyses.
So
Oh,
we
and
have,
oh, sorry.
go ahead, your superpower.
Yeah, my superpower, I would say, just is curiosity about anything and everything, and
Yeah.
making connections that might
Yeah.
go
Good.
unnoticed when you focus on just one thing.
Yeah, so curiosity is one of the number one answer on the podcast when I ask all of my guests, like, what is something you want to tell like a junior level employee or somebody that's just getting started? They basically say those two things. Hi, you're saying this message because I want to let you know that I'm running a next workshop on March 27th on media strategy. It's called Programmatic Media Planning Made Simple. It's going to be 90 minutes of a workshop, virtual launch and learn style. We will be able to give you a recording of the workshop if you cannot join. But there's going to be bonuses for the people joining live, as always. Why should you join? Because we don't realize that programmatic media ninjas, that it all starts at the brief, at the media plan level, way before it gets into our hands. And so if you're not able to understand this process, how can we make intelligence decisions when we're optimizing our campaign, deciding which supply vendors to go to, deciding which inventory to continue bidding on or not, deciding how to even recommend new strategies if you don't understand the planning phase. So I invite you to join March 27. The link is below or in this QR code. Make sure you join, make sure you bring your friends. I want to invite as many media traders, ad ops, programmatic ninjas as possible, or whoever is working really closely with those teams. Why? Because the more the merrier, obviously, but it's also a free workshop. Why not learn and then be able to implement it in your day-to-day? And one last thing, you already know I'm going to be leaving you with a lot of guides, at least a guide or two. But here are some of the questions I will make sure you understand. How media planning starts, how to make decision in terms of budget allocation. How many times have we not had this, I don't know how much budget should be implemented here, or how much budget should be allocated here? We're going to give you the secret sauce. And maybe not last, but maybe one of the many points for answers, like when do we RFP? When do we RFI? Why not? How? Where? All of those answers are going to be answers. So make sure you sign up, and I'll see you at March 27th. They basically say those two things: stay curious and ask a lot of questions. And okay, I agree with both of them. So we basically have we have the energy, we have the foundation, and we have the brain behind StackAdapt. You welcome everybody listening and watching this. That was done on purpose for sure. So today's conversation is really something that's dear to my heart. Because very often I get asked questions such as like, how do you do it? How did you get where you got? And so maybe Lydia, you can lead on this one and tell us a little bit about maybe like your journey. Like, give us a couple minutes, like in a couple minutes, give us your journey to where you are, because I'm guessing you woke up one day when you were 6 and you're like, I'm definitely going to be an ad tech when I grow up. I'm going to be something programmatic ninja, like obviously. So tell us, Lydia, a little bit about like, well, I landed here because.
Yeah, so I wish I could have, had that foresight to think I would end up in programmatic advertising, but definitely not what I was thinking when I was a teenager, or really honestly, even in college.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I studied communications and marketing in school, and I felt this way honestly, even through high school, through college, of there's so much out there in terms of possibility of what I could go do career-wise. It was pretty hard for me to narrow it down. I fell into it, I think. And that's, a lot of us say it's that kind of accidental path. But I had a friend of mine who was a few years older who was working in the advertising industry.
Oh, yeah.
And she encouraged me to apply for a role. And I did. And so I ended up joining Microsoft out of college. But I started in a technical operations role. So I was responsible for handling all of the creative assets from agencies.
Nice.
And building campaigns, video or display on Xbox or Skype or MSN. And did that for about a year or so, loved it, moved into the sales side of the house as an account manager and was managing those campaigns for a number of different brands and agencies. And again, kind of had that accidental, path into operations when the GM that I was supporting at the time at Microsoft, I think she recognized something in me that I honestly didn't see in myself. And I think tying into kind of like finding your champions in the workplace, she was really my champion. And, asked me to interview for a role to support her team from a sales operations perspective. And I was like, I don't even know what sales operations is. How do you expect me to go from being, an account manager and kind of on the sales side, upselling and running, your forecasting and planning and all of these operational initiatives.
Yeah.
But she saw something in me and interviewed for that role, got that role. And that honestly was, I kind of fell into my bread and butter, my niche of what I wanted to do, and really realized that I had a lot of the skills and abilities to succeed in that type of a role. And so I stayed in sales operations for a couple more years, and then moved on through a couple different companies after that, joining a company in the fintech space, working on the payment side, but doing revenue operations over there. I joined another company as a SaaS company, so software as a service, and was doing RevOps there before I found my way to StackAdapt. And funny enough, it was kind of a full circle moment because it was my prior manager at Microsoft who referred me for this role now. So I think, just another anecdote I would share is, to really not only build a network, but maintain it is super important. And that's been a huge part of my journey in finding roles. And even just having that kind of board of mentors outside of your company too, that can be advocates and advisors for you as you're navigating your career.
Oh man, I love the term board of mentors because that is something I was very early on recommended to have as I started my freelancing journey, then my consultancy, and then my business, is that if you don't have a board of investor yet, have a board of mentors, but be very careful, like make sure that it represents. So if you want like a quick formula, I remember saying pick one person that is going to be that could act like your next client, like somebody that you're trying to pitch. Pick somebody that look like that or that is in that field so they can give you that perspective. Pick somebody that has a little bit more wisdom in your career, and pick somebody that can help you grow personally, because as you grow personally, you will grow professionally. And so I always went back to like, oh my God, that is so interesting. And I do have a board of mentors. I usually just check in on with one particular person. I also call her my business coach, which is my mother-in-law. But I do have some really serious mentors that have done some great things. And I also want to I also want to point out what you said that I hope nobody misses, that somebody else saw that you could do something and then you tried it and then you were like, oh, yeah, I can't do this stuff. I was built for that. And so, Zeynep, can you walk us through that moment where maybe you had a similar situation where a particular, I don't know if it was manager, anybody in your circle that saw something in you and was like, yo, Zeynep, actually go for here. Let me help you get here. Or maybe not, but go for this. And then you realize like, okay, I got this too.
Yeah, for sure. When Lydia was talking about that, yeah, I could
Mhm.
really relate to her experience
Right.
as well. I think I've been really lucky with, mentors and leaders throughout my life that also believe in giving chances to people who show some kind of promise, but haven't had the opportunity to prove themselves at that scale, right? So I got the opportunity to work on some projects that felt pretty daunting at first, but turned out to be amazing opportunities, all because my leaders advocated for me in rooms where I wasn't present. So I would like to thank especially my manager Amy, who is also a woman in this industry,
Yeah.
and the VP of data science at StackAdapt.
Mhm.
So as a people manager now, that is something that I try to carry into my style of leadership as well. How can I create opportunities, advocate for people on my team, where I can trust them to take a chance and do well, while of course giving them to support in the background to excel as well.
Yeah, yeah. And okay, so really quick, can you share this? And then I'll go to you, Anna, with the same question. But here's a question I actually want all three of y'all to address. And Zeynep, you can lead here, but what are some signs that you see like this person maybe lacks this confidence, but I know they can do it? And how can we help somebody listening that's in this situation? Like, I want the person that's listening to say, yo, I think I always wanted to do this, or I don't know if I can even go beyond this point in my life. Like, what do you want to tell this person to look for, like specific like signs, and what are some actionable things they can do to either get to this moment or to take the risk or to build the confidence? Like, what is Zeynep's take on that?
Absolutely. So I think one thing that I have started to look for is just intellectual curiosity.
Mm,
Not only doing a great job at what you're working on, what you're assigned, but also asking questions, which is something that you pointed out as well. Reaching out to other people that are not directly related to you, just always looking to expand your impact. I think that's something that's really important, that I recognize in some of my teammates and people that I manage.
okay. What's your take? Thank you, Zeynep. Anna, I would love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, so I'll start maybe with the confidence question.
Mm.
I always, look
So
at
good.
things within just the proactivity and the bias for action in someone. And I love when someone may not know what they're doing, or they don't like, or they don't think they know what they're doing, but they just try and they go for it because, they're going to learn something. They want to show that they want to contribute. That's when I see that the person, even if they don't figure it out the first or the second time, just that proactivity and willingness to try, it's amazing. And on top of, I really like, Zeynep, what you said, and Ellen as well, just the curiosity, asking questions and finding out where can I be helpful and can I try doing it. So for me, the kind of Nike, just do it. It's probably one thing that we all can benefit and help us with confidence a little bit as well. And then on the past, similar stories, I think what Lydia and Zeynep shared, the fact that I'm actually in ad tech started with someone taking a bet on me when I had no idea what digital advertising was, or, I didn't understand half of the words during my interview on like CPC, CTR. I'm like, I have no
I
idea.
relate to that.
Could you explain what are you asking me about?
Okay.
And so, Jenna Griffith, who's run the EMEA team back at MediaMat, like she took a bet because she was curious and she asked the right questions, and she kind of believed, I think, in my brain and learning power, coming with zero experience in that industry. And I'm forever grateful to her. And then throughout, she was my manager there, and a friend and a mentor for many, many years. And that's where, she kind of gave me that power and gave me that trust of like, you can figure it out and we'll help you learn it. And she also introduced me to a person that we then worked for many years together that actually went through similar paths to believe like, you see, he did it, you can do that too. And it was just amazing and so empowering. So definitely it was an accidental with the help from a woman to make it happen.
That is so inspiring. And yeah, most of us accidentally fell into this industry. I don't think anybody went to school until today and said, programmatic and ad tech is the way. But also, like, before I take your perspective, Lydia, I wanted to highlight something that both, like, all three of our guests have kind of got to, like, to you listening, listen to my voice when I say this. Do not mistake hardship for success or for productivity. And hear me out when I say this. It doesn't always have to feel hard for you to accomplish what you're supposed to do. Actually, I'd like to point out that it's supposed to feel easy because you have it in you, and it feels so easy to do such thing that you're creating more challenge, adding more pebbles into your shoes so that you can feel like, oh, this was hard, man. I struggled doing this, but I feel good about ourselves. I think this is something that was put into our brain to maybe mimic what success should feel like. Now, I'm not saying that there's not going to be hard times, because hard times always happen. But because you have that natural skill set, because you know how to pull that strength out of you and maybe just give it a try, and does it feel easy at that time? If it does, then you're supposed to do something like this and teach somebody to do it too, right? And so please don't think that just because shit's hard sometimes. Okay, all three of our guests can tell you shit's hard, but there are things that come naturally to you. You're like, actually, this easy to do. That means you're supposed to do more of that. Build that skill very, very good, and use it in your everyday plan. Like, productivity does not mean busyness. You don't have to be busy to be productive, but you do have to be productive to see results that you need to see. And so, Lydia, tell us a little bit about a situation where you recognize that maybe it got super busy, but that's not something you wanted to do. And how did you get out of this situation? Because very often, again, we are asked to do much more, whether you're man or woman, honestly, but we're asked and expected to deal with it quietly, silently, with a smile on our face. It's a cherry on the top, and to do it faster, better, bigger, right? Being paid less. So to tie it back to my question, because I went on a rant here, Lydia, talk to me about maybe a situation you went through where you realize this is definitely not it, and I need to get out of the situation. And if you, as you went out of the situation, what did you do?
Yeah, so I think just kind of on the note of the busyness piece, I think something that has been like remained true to myself, and I've been really intentional about is looking for like the bigger initiative, the bigger project, the bigger opportunity I can align myself to. I think to some degree, like the busy work will probably always be there. Like we all have it in every job we're in. It's never going to go away. But I think, being an advocate for yourself, like really owning kind of your voice and your confidence to ask for those bigger projects, to ask for those bigger initiatives, and aligning yourself to them. I think that's something that, when I go back to my earlier, days in my career when I was an account manager, I was constantly looking for projects that either spanned across multiple teams or spanned regions or spanned the globe, where I could show my work to more people and start to build a bigger kind of platform for myself. And it's not something necessarily that's like natural for me to kind of be really outspoken, and kind of proclaim myself as a hard worker or anything like that. And so I found like through my work, I could let it speak for itself. So as long as I found the ways to get it in front of the people that I thought could help me influence going forward in my career, that was a really helpful tool for me to get noticed, and then to just have more advocates, more champions of me and my work as I continued to kind of navigate what next role or what next leadership position I was looking for.
Yeah, I think it was Zeynep that told us in our prep call how, your manager was able to advocate for you in front of you and behind closed doors where you were not maybe allowed to or present. And so again, if you hear this message, please, 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 it's all up to us to pull ourselves up. It has to start with you. But please, if you know that you see somebody's strength, you see their light and they don't see it yet, or at least they don't see it enough, it's okay to pull somebody up. And sometimes we do it on an empty cup, which I don't always recommend, right? Because you have to pour into your cup in order to pour into others. But if that's your case, like just remember, sometimes it only starts with something as simple of like, yo, you're good at this. Like somebody told me like, oh, you're really good at explaining things. What? Is that even a thing? Yeah, you should start a podcast. Okay, here we are. And I always say that I started a podcast selfishly because I wanted to learn from other badass people like yourselves. But but now I'm like, oh, okay, I think I know this stuff a little bit. I know how to explain things, because when people leave my presence, my call, my whatever, they're like, they feel a little bit more, okay, I think I'm getting the gist of it. So my next question is about maybe something. And again, this is a selfish question, and please, Anna, maybe you can lead on this one, but negotiation. I'm giggling because it's something I don't only struggle, but I recognize that I need to build from a skill set. But there's different layer of negotiating. You can negotiate a contract, you can negotiate a position, you can negotiate with your child. I was just doing earlier today. That's the fun part. I think I'm a better negotiator because I'm a mom, but it could be different for others. Can you tell us, like, maybe build up a scenario where you had to really negotiate to get something that you deserve, that you were worthy of, and like maybe tell somebody that's listening that needs it. Tell somebody out here like what they should do in this position.
Yeah, it's a huge topic for sure. I'm a mom of teenage twins, so
Oh, wow.
negotiation is a daily daily practice for me as well. I'd say a couple of things. It's, there's so many studies done around the difference between women and men and how we negotiate, or rather negotiate less often, for less money, for less opportunities, for fewer things. And just, I remember, a few years ago when I read some of those, I was like, wow, this is like, I could just read through it and see myself in it. And then like, how many other women don't even have access to that they can have that self-realization that I need to change something about my behavior. Yes. So kind of the first one is like, educate yourself on these things, like take a negotiation course, read that book or listen to a podcast on that topic, because it's really powerful. And that is helping, as you said, with, a lot of the different things that are core to what we do in our private and in our professional life. I have this one thing, I don't remember who said it to me, but one of the advice that I got earlier in my career that I remember to this day is like, just ask. Because in the worst case, you're going to hear a no and nothing is going to change. So you're not losing anything by just asking something for an opportunity or a raise or anything else. And it's really, really important. Never take that first offer. Always negotiate, right? Because there's always more there. I would say probably an example from my own career where I negotiated more was, in one of the roles I had before, we were doing like a big reorg and kind of trying to set the company for the next phase in the evolution. And I was given a piece in there or a position in there, and I basically proposed a new role that didn't exist and wrote a new job description and proposed a new org structure around it with a clear reasoning why, and also being open about the pros and cons. So that's an important thing in a negotiation. It's not just a demand and like, you have to do this, I need it, or I deserve it, or like, I worked so hard on this, but really truly just showing on this. And it was, it was some of the toughest discussions in there, but I got the job, and it actually influenced and helped the company in a big way, within kind of the influence sphere there, and so many other examples that I have. And it kind of feels weird at times, and it feels uncomfortable, and it feels like you kind of have to like do marketing for yourself and your own PR, but it's so worth it, right? You are the most important thing, and that's the one life you have, and it's just important to ask for what you want.
It's so good to say, ask for what you want. And I love that because all you got to do is ask. Like sometimes it's that simple. Again, we want to overcomplicate and make it seem like it's a secret sauce that we need to go 20-mile hike into the middle of the Amazon to find what it looks like. But sometimes it's the answer is always more simple than we think of. And the only reason we create hardship or we create complication more than what it is sometimes is because we're afraid of that first step. But I'm here to tell you that this first step is always going to feel hard because it's unknown, it's uncertain, it's weird. It's like the first time. The first time, it's always going to feel weird. But then the second one, third one, then the fourth, and then 106, and then you keep going consistently. And so, Zeynep, I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually wanted to bring up a couple of actionable things that I learned that helped me a lot.
Okay.
So one thing is something that I also learned from my manager, actually, which is I have a shortcut on my computer that lets me check in, just take a moment and write a sentence about what I've been doing and what I'm going to do next. And I think that helps quite a bit with just clearing out the noise and that sense of busyness and actually work on the impactful tasks. And then you can take those things that you worked on and negotiate as well, because it's so easy to get caught up in, the day-to-day, just smaller tasks. But when you're intentional about the kind of work that you're pursuing and putting your energy into, I think that helps quite a bit.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it goes back to like organization, right? Because like sometimes we rush through our day and we know it's going to be a busy day. And don't take me wrong, sometimes it's busy, like y'all are all telling us. Like sometimes it gets busy. But how can you get as productive as possible during this busyness? And it's simple. Organize yourself, take action. I always tell any juniors that we get to train, and honestly, anybody that I get to train, is like, you got to organize your day the day before. Like take a 5 minutes before you log off and try to do like, tomorrow, I want to make sure I complete this one important task, prioritize based on tomorrow. Sometimes it takes more than 5 minutes though. But at least before you open your emails in the morning, prioritize your day. If you don't know how to prioritize your day, ask a manager, tell them like, hey, I think I have all these stuff on my list today. Obviously, I only have about 7 hours of working window, or maybe less for some of us. And I'm human and this is going to have a call and we're going to have another call. And so how do you want me to prioritize what needs to be done by when? And then you got to over communicate after that, right? Like you make sure that your priority is done. But like part of your priority list, or at least your to-do, should be educating yourself on a daily basis, which maybe can be very challenging for us, but I'm going to challenge you to do it educating yourself can start as easy as reading an article a day. Please, geez, please read an article a day. Listen to one podcast a day. Ask a question, learn something you've been looking to learn. Like that's easy sometimes, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of great sources out there. I'm gonna give a shout out to the Grodecka-Grad. They have the refresher. U of Digital has like a good weekly newsletter that's super dope if you haven't heard of them. And I'll add all of those in my newsletter. I have a newsletter too that comes out that is more on a technical skills build, but I'm the first two I mentioned are more of like industry trends and things like that. So there are some very great resources out there, and there's way more. So make sure you check the show notes and the description of the video for that. So let's wrap it up with maybe your routine, right? Because sometimes I do get this question, like I'm still trying to figure it out in my routine, like when I first log in, and maybe even mention like what you do from a professional growth perspective, right? So my name is Ellen Parker, and I am the CEO of Ellen Parker Consulting. Thank you so much for engaging, watching, listening to our content. Don't forget to subscribe to any of those channels and leave us a review, and maybe share it with somebody if you think it makes sense. I want to let you know 2 ways we can work together. We are here as an education consultancy. That means that you can hire us on a one-on-one via our course or our program, or for your team. It's very hands-on keyboard. Like I dive into the DSPs, the SSPs with you and develop internal processes. We do optimization boot camps and optimization workshops, analysis workshop, critical thinking workshop with your team. We're super hands-on, we're super engaged, and usually work with those teams for about 6 to 12 months, either on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis. The second way to work with us is on a hybrid model. So hear me out. Most of us have a lot on our plate, and sometimes we just need to delegate some of this stuff so we can keep focusing on our magic. We also offer a hybrid model where we come, do the work, and train somebody to take over eventually, whatever that looks like. So if you're interested, make sure you email us at info@heleneparker.com. It'll be in the message. It'll be in the description of this video or in the show notes of the podcast. And always, thank you so much for all of what you do. And shout out to you for showing up today yourself and keep learning. Professional growth perspective, right? So let me ask those 2 questions. What is one of your personal growth go-to? Like, what is something when you need it, when you know it, maybe something is constant for you? What is something you're working on maybe right now that you want to share from a personal growth perspective? Lydia, how about you share? And then we'll go to the second question.
Yeah. Gosh, it's a hard one. I think maybe I would say, I think just like probably navigating imposter syndrome a bit, because I think I think women especially at any level, like we've all had those moments of feeling like we don't belong, or maybe we're not qualified enough. And a lot of times because we don't see people that look like us in leadership positions. And so I think, just something to continuously work on and remind myself of is, recognizing that I didn't get to where I am in my career by luck. It was a lot of hard work. It was earning, my role and earning kind of my position. And I think, it's a good practice to, self-advocate, continue to build and maintain that, board of mentors. As I said before, I think that's been really huge in having just that safe space to go run ideas by, or, get advice and that consultation outside of the workplace. And also just, they can be your champions too, kind of building you up and helping, build that confidence. And then I think like the last piece around that kind of imposter syndrome is just recognizing that, no matter where you are in your career, like always harnessing that learn as you go mindset. I think like never stop learning, never stop being curious. I know we touched on that at the beginning of this, but I think it's also just recognizing that there's no leader that has all the answers. So like you're not alone when you don't know the answer, and it's okay. And a lot of the times you're figuring it out as you go, and that's totally fine. And so I think just embracing that learning mindset and embracing, that you don't have to have all the answers, and you've got a community of supporters, hopefully, that you're building through your career personally and professionally that you can lean on. And I think just really community, kind of on that note, I'd say is probably like the number one thing I would advocate for, is like building your community around you that can support you in the good times, the bad times, personally, professionally. And as you were saying, on like, as we rise up, to bring other women along with us, like that's a big part of community for me, is making sure that I'm looking around and I'm bringing other women along with me on my ride as well. So I'll stop there, but
That's so good. Thank you. Thank you, Lydia. Oh man, that was so good. Zeynep, can you give us like your 2 minutes? In 2 minutes or less, like tell us your personal growth goal for the year and how do you go about it?
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, just bringing a sense of calm and intention into both my personal and professional life, especially in this extremely fast-changing industry, but also a world that is going through some changes. I think it's important to, remain focused on a task. And I try to do that in my little check-in and my little routines at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. I think that's something that just helps everyone, not just you, but everyone around you as well. So that's something that I'm working on for next year.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Zeynep. How about you, Anna?
I'd say my ongoing like professional development goal is to stay hireable and stay promotable. Like this is at the high level. Like how do you stay
So
up
good.
to date with the industry, right? How do you make sure you have that board of advisors and the network that you can rely on, and then the people around you that then you can bring on the journey, as Lydia said. And I read a lot, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I make time to go to that conference and make time to meet with clients and make time to go and network. I try actually to go and like meet people that are very different than me.
Oh, that's good.
Because, if you kind of just surround yourself with
Yeah.
similar, like, then you kind of, it's like, you hear the same plus ones and things like that.
Yeah.
But people that just have different perspective, different industries, different backgrounds,
Yeah.
the diversity of thought, like, pushes me as well. And then with that, I think to the earlier topic, Ellen, it's like, just stay organized. Like I always say, you should be as busy as you make yourself. And it's not an excuse for driving impact. And like, how do you figure out to become that multiplier and delegate and organize your calendar and things? Like fill it with the big rocks first and then the smaller ones. And I like the one, just wake up with like, bite the frog first. And the most important thing in the morning before you go into the, it feels so good to check on the small thing on the to-do list, but doesn't necessarily drive impact. So these would be some of the things. And also back to the negotiation, when you think about what do you do, where do you learn, like, is that going to help you keep your job, get your next job, and get to that promotion? And I'd say driving impact is one of the most important things. Like, do things that matter for the business, for your team, for the network.
That is so cool. So let's wrap it up because I have only 17 questions left to ask. But I think this last one is the most important, is that and we can start with you, Zeynep. What is one thing you want everyone listening or watching this podcast to do today to maybe improve their inner person or their professional person, whatever it is? Like, what is one thing you want to encourage people to do that maybe has very significant impact on you?
Yeah, I think just pausing, going back to my previous answer, it's so easy to get distracted. So I would take maybe an hour this week just to think about where you want to be, both in a personal level, but also on a professional level. And then thinking about maybe that board of mentors and thinking about people you can reach out to right now. I think just a small 1 hour action will have a massive impact in your life.
Wow, that's so cool. Before we get to Lydia, I just want to also highlight, like, just pausing, the exercise of staying quiet and silent with yourself, by yourself. I don't know if people know how to do that very well or comfortable doing that by themselves. And so maybe pausing and, in the first of the year, we always get through this craze or this trends of like vision board, year, new me, new goals. It's like, it's only the third month in the year. Like you don't have to just, oh, I missed that craze. Like just do that vision board for yourself, like she's like asking you to do. Just review what you've accomplished, and maybe if that is emptier than what you expected today in your life, I can guarantee that it's probably not empty. We just didn't track it really well. Maybe it's time to start tracking and do something. I know you have, Zeynep, a brag document. I call it a win folder, which is every time you do something magical, whether if and there's no small or big wins, but every time you have a win, to go ahead and take that screenshot, write it down, add it to your folder. So down the days where you have that imposter syndrome knocking, because I do too sometimes. I open that folder and I'm like, oh, I did this. Oh shit, I forgot I did this. Oh wow, I did this too. To remind yourself how actually pretty dope you are, and that again, you're deserving of being wherever you are, and that you're doing the best today with what you have, which means tomorrow will be even better, right? So I never look back and say like, oh man, I wish this would have happened or this would have made sense. But like at that point, I had made this best decision with what I had at that point in my life. And that's what I needed to do. That's the lesson I need to learn. So let's retract from living in the past and living into the future. So with that being said, Lydia, how about you give us your perspective? What if something you want the people of the podcast to go with, or a word of encouragement? Like, what do you want them to do? Oh, we can't recycle others.
No,
This is
I would
so
actually,
good. So give me
I
some.
would say, here's something that I would say don't do, which I would
Oh.
say, don't feel failure. That's kind of what you were just chatting about, Ellen, is like, I think it's really about,
Good.
recognizing mistakes are a part of your growth. They're a part of
Oh
your
yeah.
journey, and learn
You're
from them quickly and move forward. And so it's like, don't get stuck in the mistake, just move forward, learn from it and take it. And I think like one other thing I would say in terms of, what not to do is don't apologize for taking up space. I think own your voice, your ideas, your perspective is so valuable. And make sure you're bringing it to the table. It's easier said than done, but I think the more you practice it, the more you build that muscle, the farther, it will help you along in your journey.
That's so good. What I think it's like something, some article I had read about a neurosurgeon retired, and like I think he the reporter asked him like, oh, what's something you want to leave us with, let's say, and I'm quoting here, and he was like, well, I've had X amount, like I think it was like hundreds of thousands of brain surgery, right? Because it was like brain surgery or neurosurgeon. And he's like, but I always started my first one. And I never understood this until very recently, where I'm like, oh, he meant like to get to that 100,000 brain surgery, successful brain surgery, he had to go through this very first one, and then the second, and then he had to build up. And so I love what you said about building up that muscle. If it doesn't come naturally right now, you can still build it. Okay, that focus on your natural strength, but you can acquire skills and strength, and it can grow with you as well. Anna, how about you wrap it up for us?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. I think one is like the pausing. I love asking myself a question like, how do I want to feel next time, next week, this time next week, this time next month, this time next year, and then like, what do I want to accomplish, and then kind of decompose it into like, what do I need to focus on to get there? So at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year, I'm not in the same position. So that's one. But the second one, like kind of a call to action for everyone. Like it's Women's History Month. We have the International Women's Day coming up. Just pick up the phone, call the women that made an impact on you, or text
That's
them,
so good.
and
Yeah.
and just share those gratitudes and the thank yous and the stuff, because we very often just don't know how much we influence people and how much
Yeah,
we help, or things that we learn.
that's true.
And I think just sharing that and letting the women around you know, or the men that helped you as well, right? I think it's just so important. We also get so busy, we think about it, but just let them know.
So gratitude, being unapologetic, and then taking a moment for yourself and to pause. Ladies, this has been such a gem. I really appreciate you coming onto the podcast. It is beyond honor to have you here. Thank you so much, Anna, Lydia, and Zeynep. And we will have all of their information into the show notes and in the description of this video. Thank you again for coming, ladies.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.